right, welcome to the second WaldenBros podcast. Uh, there was some audio issues last time, so I bought this nifty headset. Please let me know in the comments if this is any better. Um, but this week is even less structured than last week. We did zero preparation for this, but we just have a couple of just there's a lot going on in the world. So I feel like there's just a lot to talk about. Uh, but before all that, just a fun topic is both of us bought CyberPunk for the Switch 2, and so I just wanted to get your feelings on it. Like, how, are you liking the game?
Um, I'd say that I have liked it. Um, what I've played of it so far. I've not finished the game, so you don't have to worry about spoilers because I don't know what happens.
Right.
But
Same here. Same here.
but I've played through a good amount. Just to kind of give you a maybe the point I got to. I'm only a little bit past the point where Keanu Reeves' character uh,
Like shows up.
comes in.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and I think I'm not as used to what's the company? Is it like Project Red, Studio Red, or something like that?
Yeah.
Um,
CD
I'm not
Project Red, whatever.
CD Project Red. That's right. Um, so like I played just a little bit of The Witcher. And so I'm not as used to their style of role-playing game, which is they really give a personality to their protagonists.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, other games maybe in that same tradition are like uh,
Just blank slabs.
the Grand Theft Auto, the Rockstar type games as well. Yeah, where it's like where there's RPG, it's like an open world, but also like there absolutely is like a very specific story that you're playing along. And that feels a little bit different from like Bethesda style
Yeah.
of role-playing games like Fallout and such, which is yeah, there's storylines in that, but your character feels more like a blank canvas
Mhm.
um in comparison to this game. I don't necessarily mind it. I think the storyline was like there are moments in the game that I was like feeling legitimately stressed because of story
Mhm.
elements. Never mind the gameplay. I'm not necessarily the best at video games, so I'm playing on the easiest mode, but still, like the storyline was like stressful, and I don't know. I thought it was pretty riveting. I liked it.
Nice. Yeah, I am even less far than you because I have not met Keanu Reeves in my game. And actually, I beat like the tutorial mode with the you have the three options in the beginning, and I picked the street one and played it. I wasn't like super feeling the story, so I just started over and did the corpo and played through their thing, and I liked that. I thought that was more interesting from like a plot perspective. Um, Only to realize that you end up in the exact same place after the tutorial. Like there's not, it doesn't actually have as big of an impact on the story as I thought it did, or maybe it will in later ways. I just don't
It
know.
probably will.
But it's certainly the there's like a, and I'm sure because you did the Nomad one,
I did.
but I assume you have
Yeah.
the same companion guy who gave you your first mission as I did.
So I'm sure
The big
that
buff
is,
guy
yeah, like they're
who's
not gonna
your
make a new
pal, yeah,
companion, but
for some reason, and he's your pal in all of
yeah.
them for various reasons. So I thought that was interesting.
So here's the thing, kind of my perspective, and the reason I chose the Nomad one is because I gravitate towards like the morally best
Mm,
choice, and the beginning of the game made that option seem like that was the character with maybe more the most morally upstanding background for one reason or the other.
do you think that's the case? Because I would say that having done the other two, they are not upstanding. I mean, like
Yeah,
he's kind of like a scoundrel with a heart of gold kind of character. Um,
Yeah, and so that's the thing is that my character that's also how my character came across. Like I imagine this character is always a scoundrel with a heart of gold. But that said, that's why I chose it. But there's absolutely kind of like story hooks in the introduction that I chose. And I would be shocked if they didn't come into play later. So I think that most likely your background will have an effect later in the story, but it probably happens at key points and doesn't influence the entire thing. Like
sure.
they probably keep it so it's like it's the same story generally, but like there's certain like key points or maybe even like a key character that is different between those.
I was like, there was definitely some moments where there was dialogue options, but all the dialogue basically said the same thing. Where it was like, yes, I'd love to. Yes, I guess so. It's just, but they're both yes. But I think that is probably because it was a tutorial, and you're
Yeah,
kind of locked into a path. And I'm sure as the game opens up, I'm gonna have more actual choices.
I can confirm that you are going to be given some dialogue things that feel like they have some legitimate impacts on how the story plays out. Up to the point that I played, at least.
All right, well, that's that concludes the fun segment because we have lots of not fun things to talk about. So I want to start. This is such a the whole idea for this podcast is such like a whiplash between like, oh, let's have a fun topic, and then but the fun topic feels so completely
Trite.
inconsequential compared to the maybe when there's less serious things happening, maybe it won't seem so crazy. Um, but the biggest news by far, I think, of the last several weeks has been the Middle East. There was flare-ups between uh, basically Israel bombed Iran, and then the U.S. got in on the action shortly after. And now we're in kind of a it's unclear about where things are going to go. It could be that this. I don't think it's truly going to. I don't foresee a situation in the way that the MAGA folks are talking about it as if this is like going to be consequence free, and there's absolutely no. It's just going to be great because we stopped the Iranians from getting a nuke, and then happily ever after. I think that's naive, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be World War III either. It could be the case that there is sort of a middle ground where you know Iran is like more has more motivation than ever to get the bomb, to be honest, and like bombing one site, which what they did, I don't know is enough to completely dismantle their nuclear program. Like at the end of the day, it's all about like, do you have scientists who know how to do it, and either you do or you don't. And unless we killed every scientist, right, then there's just an aspect of what did we really achieve here? Uh, yeah, dumping a lot on you. What are your thoughts on the whole situation?
Um, so I remember like it's been like a week since like the dust has settled, so to speak, I feel like. And the I don't know, like I feel like kind of the anxieties of like greater war, a lot of it comes down to like what do other countries think or do about it? And kind of what it seems a little bit is that like we're maybe rightfully countries are that have given lip service to like we're friends and stuff like that, like it hasn't necessarily panned out into action yet. And that's kind of like where the fears come from. Like China and Iran have had a strong relationship for a long time, but China is not looking to intervene
Mm-hmm.
during things like this, like clearly, right? Um, and we kind of saw that in micro earlier during the Israel Hamas conflict, which is still ongoing. And because Iran's allies were all surrounding, like all around Israel, up in Syria, up in like you know uh, what is it, Qatar, bottom half of Saudi Arabia, that the Houthis essentially.
Mm.
Like all of these individuals, and Israel attacked them, and Iran was not in a feeling in a capacity where they could support them either, you know. So, but like the risk of global conflict is always like how far is someone willing to go to protect against someone, you know, else and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty skeptical of the official, um, or like the Netanyahu's reasoning for why he did this. That there was just imminent danger; they had to take action. I think that
Right.
Netanyahu smelled weakness when Iran didn't do all this, fight them on these multiple
Yeah.
fronts, and because he sniffed weakness, he was like, "Okay, I have an opportunity here. I'm trying to keep my country in a perpetual war state." So that I can be the leader forever and not have elections and not go to trial for my various misdeeds, which
Right.
Donald Trump is now on board with for some reason, and he's pressuring the Israeli courts to also not drop the the charges against
Yeah.
Netanyahu because I guess like attracts like, I guess. And so yeah, he saw that the war in with well, you don't even know if you call it a war at this point. In fact, I probably wouldn't. But the war with Hamas uh,
Right.
is pretty much over. I mean, like they'll tell you that it's not, but it basically is. There's not a real two sides going at it. I think at this point. So now it's um, this is just a chance
Well, I
to
mean,
expand the war and to make it so that he
yeah.
still has enemies to fight, and he's going to keep on doing that for as long as people allow him to, basically.
When I say war, what I mean is that Israel is continuing to bomb Palestine.
Yes, yes.
Um, so uh, yeah, so um, yeah, I think I I am wondering whether Israel, and I don't know, maybe I'm just not knowledgeable enough about the topic, but I'm wondering if Israel feels like they got what they wanted out of this conflict with Iran. Um,
I think that the government did. Because I think the Israeli government right now is
uh,
just a very far right kind of, uh,
yeah,
and they just the
for sure.
idea of like we're gonna fight our enemies, and you know, I think is 100% in line with what they want. I think they're probably ecstatic that one, that they got to pick all these fights, and that two, they have the full might and backing of the United States there with them. I think I think part of the reason they
That's
didn't do
true.
this earlier is because they assumed that other U.S. presidents would not just follow through and be like, "Oh yeah, we'll go fight Iran with you," but now they feel like they have an ally who's going to do that, and clearly they do, and so now they,
Even
yeah,
even Trump had told Netanyahu that absolutely is not to bomb Iran, and then Netanyahu did it, and Trump decided that he liked it. Like it was, it's just
So if reports are to
so,
be believed, it was because in classic Trump fashion, he was against it until he saw Fox News talk about how great it was, and he decided it was great, and it actually was all his idea from to begin with. Like as so many things with him work that way, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely a moving situation on the ground. This is going to have a lot of you know the if there is escalation, in terms of escalation with the United States, I would think that the most likely is that uh, Iran's kind of back pocket move is it has a lot of control over oil, um, just in terms of it controls like a key shipping lane for oil effectively,
yeah.
so it could close that off, and that would cause a big shock in oil prices. But that would also, that would have a lot of collateral damage. Like that would hurt the United States for sure, but that would hurt everybody, including like China and other countries that Iran potentially wants to stay on their good side. So it will be kind of interesting to see how things develop.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously you can talk about any of these topics for hours and hours, but since we're two laymen, we won't get too into the weeds about stuff I think both of us are, we watch the news and when we follow things, we have a cursory knowledge, but I don't think either of us would pretend to be experts by any means. Um, but the other thing that just happened today is this Senate passed the big beautiful bill.
Ah, yes.
So that is yeah, that's big news because that bill does a lot of stuff, um, and as far as I can tell, almost none of it good. In fact, I don't know if I've heard a single good thing about it, but I've heard lots and lots of bad things um, that I guess we can get into. It's not truly passed yet because it has to go back to the House one more time.
Yeah,
And
because it got changed.
right, yeah, the Senate changed it, so the House can either pass it as is, in which case then it would go to Trump's desk, or they would modify it again, in which case it would have to go through another round in the Senate. Um, but yeah, the thing that everyone talks about, which is absolutely the case, is that this is going to kick a lot of people off of Medicare, and through various ways, it's going to reduce subsidies for care, which is going to make it more expensive. They're also going to cut off funding to states to enact Medicare, which means the states might just kick people off themselves. And then there's also these work requirements. And you might say, like, well, what's the problem with, maybe it is good to have work requirements. And even if you have that opinion, they make the paperwork so arduous that even if you do have a job, it's difficult to prove it. So it's really just a fancy way to kick people off. And this would definitely have major healthcare implications. And not only would this affect people who are on Medicare, obviously, but if you take that many people off of health insurance all at once, that's going to have downstream effects to a lot of people because a lot of hospitals, for example, rely on the income they make from Medicare patients, and if you just like take that away, then will it stay solvent? I mean, some hospitals may close because of this, which would obviously affect you even if you do have healthcare. So and then of course there's the whole every uninsured American is essentially hurting us all the time because then they just end up in emergency rooms, which gets paid by taxpayers. So it's a lose lose lose. It's the opposite of a win win win. Um,
Well,
yeah.
I just because you were saying that's like it seems like nobody benefits, and I'll have you know that some very wealthy people who don't pay taxes are so
Yeah,
absolutely
that's the
there's
kicker.
there's an extremely important constituent like group that is benefiting from this.
Yes, we are because yeah, that's important to say is that this is going to increase the deficit a lot. And so, like, how is that possible? How could it increase the deficit if you're cutting costs, right? You're cutting Medicare costs. Well, fun fact that money is actually going straight into the wealthiest Americans' pockets. So, this is literally stealing from the poor to give to the rich in basically any way you could. Also, don't worry, we are actually still spending massive government money on ICE. So we're gonna, because ICE has been great so far, just amazing, and so we're going to increase their funding massively, so we can have more ICE agents on the streets, right? So that's another thing this bill does. Another thing this bill does is it makes uh, building so right. Biden passed a bill for green energy that basically gives subsidies to build. It makes it easier to build green energy, right? You can build solar plants, whatever, and you get kind of discounts from the government. So it was widely expected that Trump was going to take away those tax benefits, right? Like that, not a shock. But what was shocking is that not only did they do that, they're also going to add taxes, so it's harder to build green energy, and they're going to give tax breaks to coal companies. So they're literally designing this in such a way that like it's not even the free market. It is government picking the winner, and they're choosing coal. and they're choosing like, and it's because a bunch of like oil and gas lobbyist types gave big campaign contributions to Trump. So this is him, that this is like the mafia style government that Trump operates in, where he, wants to reward his friends and hurt his enemies, um, and kind of, you know, play that kind of politics, regarding without any kind of principle behind it. There's no small government conservatism or like literally none of it matters. It's just, you know, let me let
Yeah.
me grease the wheel on my friends, and they can grease the wheel on myself, and we can all just be in a big corrupt party together. Um, and hopefully, all in all, you'll say some nice things about me so I can feel good myself in a narcissistic way. And there's the Trump admin.
So I've got a question. So we were talking about Elon Musk last
Mm,
time, and his most recent comment is that he's threatening to primary everyone, all the senators slash congressmen who are supporting. He's going to fund the opposition,
yeah.
uh, uh, because he is very much against like the spending of this bill.
Mm.
Do you feel like he has the political weight to throw around that he did, that this threat will actually even matter?
Okay. Many thoughts. One
Okay.
thought: the fact that the richest man in the world can do that is still gross, even if it's on my side or whatever. Like, it's
Oh,
just
first.
that's bad and is always bad under any circumstance. Um, but two, whether how effective it is. I think the first question when we talk about effectiveness isn't even does he have the political weight. Is he just not going to flip flop a week later when he says I may have taken things too far with Mr. Trump? Like,
Right.
I don't even know if I trust the guy to do what he says. But
Sure. Okay.
if that were down the line actually a real thing that he did, and he's like funding Republican primary challengers against the MAGA people, I think that I don't think that it would be effective because of Musk. Like, I don't think people are like, oh wow, I just love Musk so much, and whatever he says
Okay.
about politics, I want to believe that like he doesn't have that kind of cachet
Yeah.
at all. Um, and as far as he did, it was only because he was a Trump sycophant,
Right.
and so it became very obvious when that stopped being the case that he didn't have a lot of juice. He
Yeah.
has some, like there's some people who really like Musk, but I think they're just definitely a minority. Um,
Okay.
and then, but I think what would matter is the money, you know, regardless of who it came from. I
Sure.
think money in local
Money.
races does
Money.
make a difference. So
Yeah.
if he was actually serious about giving serious money to people who were on primary challenges, even if that didn't always result in primary wins, it would definitely like hurt the Republicans in the general
Yeah.
because there's all these
Sure.
negative ads against them early on and stuff. Or I would think. And then it also could be the case that if I should say if this bill passes. By the way, especially if you live in a Republican district, call your representative. Tell them, hey, I don't like this bill. Right? That's not a crazy thing to do. It's like not only a liberal position. Most Americans don't like this bill, and you can even you could say like even uh, Musk doesn't like it. Maybe that has some sway with the office. I have no idea. But yeah, yeah, it hasn't passed yet, so we shouldn't assume that it did. Obamacare was not repealed, right? Famously, so it's not like the Trump admin is like super good about always getting all their votes through. But um, if this bill passes, and people actually are kicked off of their health care, and their and all of the other bad things that it does, it could be the case that someone, even if it's Musk, like it will look a lot better then than he does now.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, he was right all along, and actually, we do want the Musk faction over the MAGA faction. Again, if that
Yeah.
even materializes at all, I'm very skeptical. But because Elon Musk he just says stuff sometimes. He says a
Right.
lot of things, and I don't until something actually happens. I'm always just like, we'll see.
Yeah.
But all right,
Okay.
we got through a lot of topics there. CyberPunk World War III, big beautiful bill. And we're going to try to keep these short. So I think we're going to wrap it up. But if you are a viewer of this and you have opinions, we want to hear them, even if they're negative. Right? We're happy to take criticism, but just let us know what you think. And if you like it, subscribe. All right. Till next time.